Can you tell me a project you worked on that you really enjoyed or found particularly interesting?
How much time do we have? Training can be done virtually. I don't have to wait for the trainer to be ready to have a time slot for me.
Not like it's a jet engine, which is complex, but it is.
One of the key takeaways we had over the last few years is communication. So I press this button, what should happen? If the user wants to do this, how should the user journey be? All those things to get as close to the expectation of a client as possible.
What do you envision for the future of immersive training and simulation technology? Hey, I'm Daron. I'm chief scientist and founder at Knoxlabs. We are an XR launchpad. We work with companies to bring their XR solutions to light. Today with me, I have Philip from Hololight. Hololight makes enterprise XR software. They're an immersive software, and they build immersive software and technology to optimize engineering, stream XR applications, and scale XR deployments. They work with a variety of headsets, particularly for AR. They work with the Magic Leap 2 device, and just wanted to have a quick discussion about what you guys do. So can you tell me a little about you and your company?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking. So you mentioned some of our stuff we're doing. We basically provide XR software, infrastructure, and streaming technology. And in essence, it's to visualize and work with industrial 3D CAD data. It is to scale XR. It is to use 3D content and to improve and revolutionize how companies are working together, or how people are working together in those companies or in between companies. And that's, in the essence, what we do. Just two quick words about our products. You mentioned it. So the first product is called Space, which is our bread and butter product regarding visualizing 3D CAD data. It is powered by our streaming technology, which can also be used for other products or other applications. It is an SDK. And lastly, we provide a platform, and a centralized XR platform, which can be used by clients to upload their applications onto our platform and stream them on a global scale. So all those three products together enable a company to really dive into XR or AR and utilize and maximize the efficiency that technology can actually give them. Two brief words about me. I joined Hololight in 2016 as a shareholder, but also as the person responsible for project management, transitioning all the way to sales, and now being responsible for our channel department as the channel director, taking care of our clients, but mainly of our partners, and trying to grow the business together with our partners.
Awesome. Exciting. Thanks, Philip. Okay. Can you tell me a project you've worked on that you really enjoyed or found particularly interesting?
How much time do we have?
We can go pretty long. Maybe like if you can tell me one that you found personally exciting, and then maybe one like in the defense sector that is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So to be honest, every single project we did was absolutely interesting and amazing, because every project has its interesting sides and bits and pieces. But one of the more interesting ones, and actually we're doing that just now, is about the decommissioning of nuclear power plants.
Wow.
It is a huge topic right now. It is a very stressful job. It's a very long period of time to decommission actually a power plant. And so the idea is to digitize the whole, well, not the whole process, but parts of the process. So what many people do not know is that not only the reactor core or the radioactive part has to be decommissioned, but also the whole concrete hull of the power plant. And this is a painstakingly, it takes very long to do that. And so you have to imagine that those, at least in Germany, people have to literally paint 1 by 1 meter squares over the whole power plant, actually.
Oh.
Like every single wall, every ceiling, the floor, every single column, every surface you see is basically being painted. It's rasterized. So it's a 1 by 1 grid. And that is so they do it because they need to actually scan for radioactivity, and they need to scan every single square meter to determine what happens with exactly the material of that 1 square meter. So is it below a certain threshold? Is it above? And that needs to be manually scanned. And then after the scan, they need to mark every single square meter in the whole power plant, which takes 2 to 3 years. So in our project now, we are trying to digitize that process, getting rid of the painting, getting rid of whatever is being written on the walls, like whatever values are written there, because they can get lost. They can get rubbed off. They could be destroyed if someone hammers or tries to dismantle something. And by digitizing it, we basically take the values we get from the Geiger counters, from different other scanning devices, and we display it directly into the HoloLens, or magically, depending on how the project goes. And that means we have reference points. We have a laser scan of the whole room. So it's always done room by room. And this scan is then being shown to the user, so he always knows where he is, what square, where he is basically working in the grid, and where he's scanning, where he has to scan. So we show him where he has been scanning. We show him the value of the scan, so meaning the radioactivity. And this is all of that is stored in the system, which then is in one place. So they can look at whatever they did in their own system. They don't have to be in the power plant for that to actually, read all the values, to determine okay, so what's the radiation here? What's the radiation there? It's all in a digitized system, which of course makes documenting the whole process much easier. This is a huge part, documentation. So that is actually the one thing that is one of the core goals of that project, documentation, but also time reduction. Because as I just mentioned, the drawing of the grid alone takes so much time that a number of people is doing nothing else than just drawing that grid into the power plant, which doesn't make really sense. So that's a very cool and interesting project, to be honest. But it's not defense. The other project, which is kind of defense, and for me as an aviation nerd, I would say,
Me too.
Absolute aviation nerd. This is a very cool project. I can't really say which company we work with, but it's a German company, and it's basically about repairing a fighter jet turbine. So, that's a problem with many, let's say, companies. They lose knowledge because people getting older, people who have done the repairs for their whole lives, they retire. They don't really teach it anymore to other people sometimes. Experts, you have less experts. So that means the experts become scarce. And the training is getting harder and harder. So now what this project is about, it's training people how to, disassemble, assemble the fighter jet turbine. In our case, it was only the flap. But still, it shows the principle that the training can be done virtually, either on the actual object. So that means you only get bits and pieces with AR, or you could do the whole training in VR by assembling and disassembling the whole turbine as a 3D CAD model. And the cool thing is, based on our space solution, we actually use the existing CAD files, which means we do not use a second, or the client does not have to use a second application, which means preparation of data, possibly reduction of data, because complex CAD data cannot be shown on devices locally. You need our streaming technology for that, because the CAD data is just very complex, very high polygon count. And thirdly, it's the time. So I can go through the training over and over and over again at 12 at night, at 6 in the morning. I don't have to wait for a teacher. I don't have to wait for the trainer to be ready to have a time slot for me. I can do the training on my own for so many times. And only if I'm ready, I tell the trainer, okay, now I would like to do it and try to show you that I actually got it. So that's one of the more interesting defense projects, because especially in defense and aviation, every airport, every military airport actually needs to have an expert for those planes, because they could go down at any airport and they have to take service, or they have to, maintenance has to be done, or maybe there is an emergency. So you have to have your experts. But if you don't have your expert on site, you have to transfer him there. And sometimes, especially in times like these, we don't know what happens. We don't know how urgent it might be. Maybe the plane has to be back up in the air within a day or half a day. And if you can't guarantee that, that's a huge problem for the armed forces. So they need actually to have an expert on site on every military airport. And by training more and more people with that system, they can actually make sure that more and more people know what to do in the case of an emergency, in the case of maintenance. So you can train different situations, different cases, and also in different levels of difficulty to ensure that there is always a sufficient workforce that can perform the job. And so, as I said, for me, working on a jet fighter turbine, which puts out 15 kilonewtons of thrust, it's just cool. And especially working on the real deal is kind of fun and interesting, and it shows how complex it still is. Even though just changing a flap on the turbine, it is complex work, and it needs to be trained. It is nothing you just do because you need to know what to do exactly, because the plane shouldn't fall out of the sky. And so that's the defense related use case, and it's a very interesting one, to be honest.
Yeah, that's super fun. Even though it's it's not like it's a jet engine, which is complex, but it is. No. It's not like it's a rocket engine, but it's a jet engine. It's the same thing. Same.
Yeah, it is still complex. Yeah, it is. It makes the thing fly. So if that doesn't work, it can be as simple as it wants. But if it doesn't work, the jet won't fly.
Yeah.
So
from what I understood, knowledge retention here is key.
Yes, and knowledge transfer.
And also, you guys, I remember you guys do a remote rendering of original data, which I think is very important in this sector, that the original data doesn't come off to any other servers, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the key points, especially in the industries we are dealing with mainly, which is automotive, aviation, and defense, and of course many other industries. But those two are in manufacturing. So those are the industries that are very, very cautious about their data, because that's their IP. And in terms of, or in case of military clients, it's not only their IP, it's sometimes a state secret. It's it is just so important that no one else should have the data. And if you now have to get the data onto your device and someone steals this device or hacks it through Wi-Fi, whatever, it can be a huge problem. And with our technology, we basically have the application itself not running on the device. So we only have a client running on the device, much like the concept is a little bit like Netflix. We are actually streaming the whole application to the device, which means not only the application runs on some kind of server, which can be a private cloud, it could be an offline workstation, just being connected through Wi-Fi to the device. It could be a internal, cloud workstation, whatever. We don't care. That means also the data always stays on the dedicated server. That's exactly the principle, which has two major advantages. So the first I just mentioned, the data security. You never ever have any data on your device. As soon as the streaming stops, the device is, even if the device, let's say, explodes, no harm is done to the data because there is no data on it. The second part is there is so much computing power on the server that we do not have to reduce polygons, we do not have to reduce complexity or anything else. We take the data as is and we stream it to our device. Many other solutions out there, they can display CAD data, they can do trainings, they can do whatever. However, CAD data gets more complex every single day. And no matter how powerful the device, even the Apple Vision Pro, it's very powerful, but there is a limit to it where you need to reduce your CAD data. If you want to, render a whole car with tens of thousands of different pieces and millions, probably up to 100 million polygons, no mobile device ever in existence will be able to render that. A GPU, on the other hand, server GPU, workstation, whatever, it's made for that, and we utilize that computing power. So basically, our XR device, no matter which one, could be a Magic Leap, HoloLens, Meta Quest 3, we don't care. The XR device basically becomes a smart monitor.
Yeah, that's powerful.
It is. And we developed that on our own. And just the last thing to mention is that I mentioned it briefly before, this system of ours actually works offline. So as long as you have a workstation, a Wi-Fi network, and your device, it doesn't have to be connected to the internet. It still does remote rendering. So we are basically the only ones who do not require the clients to send their data to any cloud instance to being rendered and then sent back, because the rendering happens on the local GPU. And that's very important to our clients.
In your experience, what's the most challenging part of building an immersive solution for a customer?
For a customer, that the experience or the expectation of a client sometimes hugely differs from what is possible and what we know is best. Let's put it this way. So sometimes they just wish for things they see in movies, they read about, which is on the horizon, like I don't know, whatever recognition or 3D scanning from within a glass or holograms in the air. So one of the challenges is to manage expectations. A lot is possible, but then again, we need to manage also expectation in terms of pricing, in terms of how much work is it to create applications, because XR, especially the industrial XR, industrial metaverse related stuff, what we do is a quite new technology. It's a quite new field of expertise. And let's say, I would say 95% of the people, they think they have experience in AR by having played Pokemon Go. So their experience or what they think is experience in XR has not really a lot to do with industrial XR. So as I said, we need to manage expectations. We need to manage everything around that. And that's why we usually, we don't do that many projects anymore, but if we do them, one of the key takeaways we had over the last few years is communication, communication, communication. So we usually start with storyboard. We try to get as deep as possible into the project, into like the user journey, the UI, what happens when. So I press this button, what should happen? So if the user wants to do this, how should the user journey be? All those things to get as close to the expectation of a client as possible. Because of course we had to learn too. And in the past, it sometimes happened that we said this but meant this. The customer understood this, and so he replied, but he meant something else. And so we got kind of, sometimes the expectations got mixed up, the features got mixed up, because we were just not talking the same language. And this is one of the key takeaways: always communicate as much as possible, especially if both parties are not on the same knowledge level about what's possible, what makes sense, how does it feel, because that's something a lot of people do not know. How does it feel to use a HoloLens? It might look great on, on rendered pictures. It might look great on videos, sometimes, marketing videos, but the real thing, the real experience sometimes is entirely different. And that expectation and that whole situation needs to be managed and brought together. And that's one of the huge challenges in XR projects, I think.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Here's one, like luckily we're able to get close to this kind of like experience right now with like HoloLight and let's say like the Magic Leap device, right? We're like
Yes.
on site. Like someone is able to join, or another team member is able to join and drop files into the actual work environment and be able to view it. So I guess it's like around this, expectations are real and doable. Yeah.
Yes, and it gets better every day, because not only us but also other immersive companies. There is so much that is being learned every single day. Technology progresses. Unfortunately, hardware does not progress as quickly as we anticipated a couple of years ago. So we still wait for Magic Leap 3. We still wait for even the slightest rumors of HoloLens 3. What might be the next Apple device look like? Is there maybe a Apple Vision Pro Air? Because nobody needs the display in front, at least in terms of industrial use cases, and things like that. So it's getting better, but it is not at the pace we actually expected a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and it's actually up to us.
It is.
Where it's like building like a company. Myself is like build the difficulties of building that company, and then difficulties of building it in a field which we're also building. Like it's a double-edged.
Yes, exactly.
Problem. Like I'm making like a deck now, like for our investors, and like first I have to like make an intro deck to like XR and VR, and then what the company does. So it's I understand that.
Yeah, I sometimes say it's like building a car with an engine, but you actually don't know what the engine is running on.
Yeah.
Will it be electricity? Will it be gas? Will it be diesel? Will it be kerosene? Will it be, I don't know, uranium? So it's kind of I think it's called catch-22, because you're trying to build something for something that's not built yet, or in a way. So it's challenging, but that makes it kind of interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
Me neither.
2 more questions for you. So, what do you envision for the future of immersive training and simulation technology? So, doesn't have to be specific to XR. You can like diverge, but can be.
Well, I guess 2 things. It will get more realistic. It will get easier to create. I think that's one of the very important things, that it needs to be easier to create trainings, because now it's still kind of complicated. you need special applications, you need sometimes special devices, you need special knowledge sometimes, Unity, Unreal, whatever. So I think that whole part, the creation part, needs to get a lot easier. But I think we're actually in a good way. And then there is the hardware side, which means, devices getting lighter. So you actually don't feel the devices anymore. Maybe some, attachments or whatever additional devices, like, there is a Tesla suit, for example, which can simulate gravity. So it can actually make objects heavy, so that they appear to be heavy. You can really touch holograms by those, let's call it sense glove or whatever. They
Haptics,
really
yeah.
make you believe that you're touching. It's haptics. So I think haptics will be a huge part of training, because it makes it just so much more realistic. And whatever is realistic, you tend to remember much easier and much better than just reading through hundreds of pages of PowerPoint. I think those two things, haptics, or let's say the hardware side, in terms of making it more realistic on that side, and making it easier to create that content.
Cool. Yeah, humans are definitely optimized for 3D.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, lastly, if you could share one piece of advice for someone like beginning their journey into building immersive technology solutions, what would you tell them?
There is, well, I mean, it's like a conundrum. There is so much, and then there is nothing I can tell you, because unless I know a specific question, there is so much to tell. So where do I start? But one of the advices, I think, and that's coming back to what I said before, communication. Try to find out what your potential clients, whatever you're trying to build, whether you're trying to build training applications, visualization tools, remote assist, or whatever it is, try to not build it on your best guess. Try to not build it in with that thing in mind. Okay, I think this is what people need. No, because you're always wrong. You have to ask people what they need. You have to ask people what they want and what they expect, and then you build it. That's like building a car with three wheels, because or six wheels, because you think, okay, that's much more stable. It's easier to steer. It looks cooler, whatever. But then every customer comes and say, hey, what the heck do you want with six wheels? I need to change six wheels now. I need to buy six wheels. It looks cool, but the cons outweigh the pros. So I would have told you, go with four wheels, go with whatever, go with this, go with that. And this is one of the big advices. And this is something I mentioned before, and we did it wrong sometimes along our product development in the past, like I would say up until like maybe 3.5 years ago. We put in features which we thought might be interesting to clients. But in fact, not all of them were. Of course, some were, because we were going down that road. But not all of them were. And so we started to really bring in our clients' feedback and said, okay, so if you had like a wish list, what would be on it? And then we worked through that, and we created some kind of roadmap from it. And this has basically two very important points. You never do stuff for nothing, to basically abandon it afterwards because nobody uses it, or it's too difficult, or you spend your resources on something that's not needed or too complicated. And it's better time management, because as I mentioned, if you put resources into features or whatever things your clients do not need, do not want, or do not pay for, you're screwed. Because of course somehow we have to make money, or whatever person that starts an XR company has to make money. But you only make money if you have a product or a service or a feature or whatever that people actually need and pay for. And that's the one advice, if no real topic is given, I would give. Always try to base your decisions in terms of product decisions on your clients' needs and feedback.
That's powerful. Yeah, I'll quote like Y Combinator here. Build something people want.
That's a perfect sentence to sum it up.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that is it.
Philip, thank you so much. A complete pleasure.
Anytime.
Thank you.
My pleasure.